Maddie.
Hi, Jack.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm doing well. What are we doing here today?
We're just going to break down some tips for what advertisers can do to get more out of their Google, YouTube, Microsoft, and all things PPC. Got an icebreaker here for us. Jack, so if you could use one word to describe PPC in 2025, what would it be?
One word. Unpredictable.
I like it.
What's your one word?
I like that one. I would roll with it.
Okay.
Unpredictable, volatile, maybe.
Yeah.
Lots of newness going on in the PPC world, so all of those would fit great.
That's why it's good to have an agency who's keeping track of all this. Yeah,
Yes.
because you never know what's going to hit you next. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're doing the this or that. So we've got last click versus data driven. What are your thoughts on those attribution types?
Yeah, so can be very different, can also be quite similar depending on the account, but two different types of attribution. With data driven, that's where we're going to see more of that split amongst all of our click types or our campaign types, especially for accounts where multiple touch points might be used. I would say that's probably my go-to for most scenarios. And then last click is obviously going to give that attribution to the last click, given its name, which still has its purpose. And do you have any more thoughts on when you'd use last click versus data driven?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that's why you use data driven most often,
Yep.
right? And that's what I do for most of my clients too, because ultimately we want these campaigns to have as much data to go off of as possible. And the best way to do that is to feed them when they're responsible for certain revenue and certain conversions. But I still think last click is really good, specifically for what's coming up soon here. Is Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is just a month out. And that what I find is the last click attribution does update data, especially day of, the quickest. And on an important day like Black Friday, where I need to know, hey, this particular hour, how much revenue we're bringing in, that's going to update faster than the data-driven attribution. So I use it specifically for that. But otherwise, I usually roll with data-driven attribution. And these are ways, most folks, if I have a brand new client, I don't know. They could be working on linear attribution, they've been doing that for years. And so how you're tracking your conversions that's always going to tell the most important story. So you just got to make sure that you've got the right setup. But yeah, I probably wouldn't do anything outside of those two.
Yeah.
Last click or data driven. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think data driven especially is helpful when we do have those business types with either more touch points or longer conversion windows, because we don't want to give all of our credit to a brand ad when we know that there was 3 or 4 different, high level top of funnel searches that led to that purchase. Because over time, we're just going to turn into an entire brand campaign account and never give any credit to our top funnel that we know serves a purpose. When you talk about the last click for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, do you recommend that clients just switch their attribution method on their existing conversion actions?
I wouldn't. I would just use it. What I would do, you can set up your attributions as either secondary or primary, as you know, right? And so if it's secondary, that means it's not taking that into account when it's making its bid optimizations, the campaigns, right? And so I wouldn't want to mess with the campaigns by switching the attribution
especially
system,
during a big week like that.
Especially during a big weekend like that, right? So what I do is you can just have it on secondary, and then you can segment by conversion action, and then you can see, I would label it.
Use it more for viewing, less for your actual bidding.
Right, correct. It's just exactly right. And so what I do is I'll typically label the secondary one like LC for last click. That way I can quickly identify which one's last click, and then maybe the other one's DDA or whatever for data-driven attribution. So
awesome.
But good call out on that one.
Some other topics I would say kind of goes hand in hand with this, wanting to get more top funnel audiences. How do we build our audiences, build our funnel? And one of the things we've seen a lot of recently is the growth of YouTube within Google, and having those campaign types that serve on YouTube. But I think one thing that can be overlooked is even if we aren't running an intentional YouTube ad, there are existing campaign types that are eligible to serve YouTube, like Performance Max, which we do use quite a lot for many accounts. One thing I've seen, I don't know if you've ever seen it, is that if you don't give it a YouTube video, it will DIY one for you from your static assets. So I guess what are your thoughts on how you use YouTube and providing creatives there?
Yeah. And we've been to a couple of Google summits. I know you've been to at least 1 or 2 this year. And what's been clear from Google's perspective is that YouTube is the future, right? Where I think clients miss a lot of it is, they don't view YouTube like they would a Facebook or an Instagram.
Right.
And I think you really, YouTube is Google's best counter to those social medias, right? And so if you think about your YouTube campaign or your YouTube account as like you would a Facebook account, where you want to be posting, you want to be engaging, you want to be adding new content, right? So yes, it's the future. You definitely don't want to ignore it. and B, if you do ignore it, Google's going to make it,
and it's not going to be pretty
anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the number one campaign type that is most efficient for most of my clients is that performance max campaign, which I think you were alluding to earlier. And that's where it tends to bring in those automatically generated videos, and
we can't opt out of those. So if you don't give it a nice YouTube video that you like, it will take your static images, your static headlines and copy, and throw them on a black screen in a jumbled mess. So and I don't think people have to, start completely fresh with YouTube videos. A lot of Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels work just great on YouTube Shorts. You probably already have content that you could upload to YouTube to make a little bit of a video, or it might be worth that one-time creative investment for some help to make a solid video that you can just have running to prevent the DIY.
A lot of people are going to look for areas outside of your website to see, like, okay, is this a brand that I trust or not, right? And Facebook and Instagram are easy areas. They have reviews on there, and they're going to go to YouTube too. And if you have nothing on your YouTube page, at least have a video that just talks about who you are, tells a story, right? People want to know what sets you apart from the Amazons, right? And why they want to purchase from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The one last thing I wanted to mention on YouTube as well is I don't think a lot of people know that you can just post on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
You can just make a written post. So if I get it, video is expensive or difficult to create. I mean, hey, if you're making a post on Instagram about a sale you got going, like, why not post it on YouTube? Like,
right.
So, but okay, we've got another this or that here. Let's talk about targeting control. So we got broad versus highly granular targeting. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this can go a lot of directions, but when we talk about e-commerce accounts, product feeds, it's easy to say, hey, I've got 10 top sellers. Why don't I only advertise on those and skip everything else? But I think there's a few important things to remember. Number one, what Google Ads sees as the converting product is not actually what someone added to cart and checked out with. It's what someone clicked to get onto the website to then make a purchase. So it's important to keep in mind that, like, your website bestsellers, your Google Ads bestsellers may not line up. And that doesn't mean one's wrong, because you might have something that is not a bestseller, but for whatever reason, it gets a whole lot of credit in Google Ads. And at least we know it's doing its purpose of getting qualified traffic to the website who are going to make a purchase on something else. So I always like to err in a little bit more broad, especially when it comes to product feeds. And if you have the product, advertise it, or at least have it be eligible. We can make changes at a campaign level to, control spend a little bit based on where it makes the most sense. But it can be a slippery slope to just start excluding things that aren't your top sellers.
Yeah, it goes along with what you mentioned earlier about we don't want our campaign to just become a branded campaign, right? Your business isn't going to grow then. We got to try to find ways to get new eyeballs to the website, people who haven't heard from you before.
Yeah.
And I always say this to clients all the time, is that my general philosophy is if you have something on your website that you're willing to sell on your website, there's no reason not to advertise that particular product. You never know how someone's going to find you. So,
right. And you've probably seen this in the search engines before, but you can see multiple shopping listings on one search query. So if we only have 2 products we're running, we're limiting ourselves right there. If we can be serving 200 products, that's just all the more opportunity to have something in an ad. Fill up that, search engine results page.
Absolutely. We should probably mention this as well, that when someone is clicking on that initial product, 70% of the time they often end up purchasing a totally different product than the one they clicked on. Now, most of that is like different sizes. I clicked on the large, but I'm a medium. It's simple stuff like that, or a different color or whatever, right? But the point being that it happens across other products that may not be clothes, for example. But you just never know. The goal of the ads is we're trying to get people qualified traffic to your website, and then ultimately it's on the website. It's on the website to finalize the sale. This is your client, I think, we'll chat about next. So ATC Mobility.
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
Yeah, so I think they're just a great example of there's a whole lot of things you can do to improve qualified lead rate, your conversion rates, et cetera, that aren't your traditional, like, conversion rate optimization, lead quality. ATC Mobility works on pickup trucks and full-size SUVs for wheelchair users. So they make conversions with the door to kind of provide an alternative for the standard minivan option that most wheelchair users are aware of. Yeah, so pretty fun product. And one of the big things that this client has done, kind of as they've rebranded and started from scratch on a lot of their advertising in the last 2 years, is we've had to do a lot to figure out how do we get the most qualified traffic, how do we get rid of the spam or somewhat, irrelevant leads, to not only improve our cost per leads, but also improve our close rates from those cost per leads, reduce unnecessary time for the salesman, et cetera. So, I think there's a lot of things that people overlook that do play a big factor on their site, in their marketing, with their messaging. So like, for example, so pretty fun product. And, when we first launched Meta ads, they had a viral video on TikTok that took off. We were getting a whole lot of inquiries about, hey, can you do this to my BMW? Can you do this to my little tiny sedan that definitely would not fit this conversion? And it was really frustrating because we knew that we were hitting the right people. They were wheelchair users. They were interested in a vehicle, but just not quite what we offered. Right. But we just tightened things up. So in our next ad refresh, we listed every model that we do in the ad copy. We also listed it in the actual graphic. We also listed it on the web page a little bit more clearly. We put it in our Google and Bing ad copy. And then even as far as the actual lead form on the website, we changed it from type in what model you're interested in to select one of the four, multiple choice, so that hopefully you get the point that if it's not one of the options, it's not available. And we've seen a ton of improvement. We've seen a lot less of those irrelevant requests that we just simply can't do. It's helped out the sales team with their time. It's helped them focus more on actual qualified, interested leads. And not only has their CPA improved significantly, but their close rate from that has as well.
Specifically the form that you mentioned where rather than you type it in, you drop, was that a suggestion on your end, or that just came about in conversation?
Just kind of came about in conversation because we were just talking about all the places we can improve it and analyzing the lead form and noticing that, hey, let's make our lead form a little bit more challenging. I think when we first started, our lead form was basic contact information and like questions or notes box. So we now have vehicle type, we now have timeline of interest. Are you looking for your vehicle in the next 30 days or the next year? Mm-hmm. That way, again, the sales team can kind of prioritize their leads on their internal end. And, just optimizing things. The other additions we've made is we even updated not their voicemail, but their little recording when someone first calls in before the phone rings, to again list those vehicle types, list the necessary steps, so that if someone is calling in again before it rings to someone's desk, they get one more reminder of, hey, am I in the right spot? Mm-hmm. Same thing with the thank you email and the thank you page that they land on after submitting a lead form. We've just made sure that our messaging is clear across the board. There's always going to be the people who don't read before they submit their lead interest, but at least we've done as much as we can to get those out. And then that's just obviously helped our automation on Google because we know that we have a much higher rate of qualified leads. So as we're sending that information, from their CRM back, we're able to better target.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's one of the big benefits of like working with an agency is that we do see a lot of different clients and a lot of different websites. And we see, even if it's a totally different business, it's like, well, I know this works well on this website. And I have to imagine that even though your business is totally different, this would probably help at least qualify the leads or something like that. So
exactly.
And that oftentimes I think business owners, they're just locked in at their website, right, and not paying attention to what else might all be out there.
Yeah, so it's important to be flexible to changing things over time, and with that also, having a site that allows you to make those changes easily can be very helpful as well. So Jack, we talked a little bit about last click versus data-driven attribution. Mm-hmm. We also have different styles of KPI measuring and reporting. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are about using MER reporting or more site-wide data as opposed to platform or campaign specific.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, a lot has changed in the Google Ads world. And especially like you look at what's happening in Europe. A lot of people are opting out of using cookies, or they have laws that are around that. And so as a result, we just don't get as much data for when folks are after they're clicking on their ads and what's happening on the website because of that. And that's what's it's mostly in Europe right now, but it's probably coming this way into the United States. And I think Google has seen that. As a result, that's why we have like GA4 and stuff like that. So as a way to pivot, where we definitely still see accurate data is probably on the back end of your website, right? What's in Shopify,
what's the actual numbers?
What's the actual? How much revenue are we really seeing? I doubt that that's inaccurate, right? So when you're talking about MER, you're talking about your marketing efficiency ratio. So it's how much revenue, what percentage of your revenue is allocated back into marketing is what it comes down to. So, and whether that's with Google, whether that's with Meta, whatever, email, whatever marketing channels you got, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's probably where the whole industry is going to go eventually.
Yeah.
Is to that point. And I know that you've got a client that you're kind of managing everything for them. So how's that been going for you?
Yeah, it's been great. So my client, Pergola, we recently expanded quite a bit across multiple platforms. So we've got Google, Bing, YouTube in that Google, Meta, TikTok, and Pinterest, all that we're managing ads for. And one of the things that's really helped us with expanding those, with growing, and just making the most of our spend is switching to a more site-wide ROI metric as opposed to platform by platform or campaign by campaign. We just, thankfully this client is very open and understands the whole overall funnel process. And so that's been really helpful because it's allowed us to say, hey, platforms like Pinterest are more top funnel. Pinterest is going to be where someone is looking for design inspiration for their backyard. They're not yet ready to purchase something. They're just trying to seek out info that might look good, so that when they come hire a contractor or a landscaper to come over and help them put it into, fruition, they have an idea. Then they might go to Google and start searching for pergolas that fit what they're looking for. And maybe, this client in particular, definitely more on the luxury side. So we often see multiple touch points before a purchase. So, then we can hit them with those retargeting ads on Meta, on YouTube, et cetera, to kind of remind them that, hey, we're still here. We know you've been thinking about it. Summer's in a few months. What can you do to start your order so that you're ready for spring and summer of next year? And so we found that switching to more of a site-wide ROI reporting has been really helpful there because we're okay with a platform like TikTok or Pinterest being a little bit lower return, knowing that we're capturing that higher return from the increased demand down the road in Google. So that's helped us a lot. We've seen great results. We've scaled significantly in 2 years to the point where, currently our scaling is on pause until more staff can be hired to keep up. So
good problem to have.
Yeah, good problem to have. I guess a question for you, Jack, is, is there a platform that you think is most underutilized and what is it?
Yeah. And, I always come back to Microsoft ads, and it's because it's a pretty easy add-on if all you're doing is Google ads. And it's something that I feel like oftentimes if I have clients who've never done Microsoft ads, which a fair amount of them never have.
Same here.
They're more like, do people really still use Microsoft? And a lot of people use Microsoft.
Yeah.
And they're surprised that it pretty consistently can hit your goals. You have a return goal, and obviously we work with clients who sometimes have really strict targets. Obviously it's their money. I'm trying to spend it as efficiently as possible. But,
right.
You just never know where someone could be searching from and how they're going to find you. So, and you obviously are never going to know what's going to work until you test it. But
right.
I have rarely seen Microsoft ads not work out for a client who's already having success on the Google ad side of things. So
same here. I just think, kind of like you mentioned, people don't realize that there are users of Bing, but I think it's easy to also forget that Bing ads includes LinkedIn audiences. It includes DuckDuckGo search results. It includes Yahoo, AOL, MSN, Microsoft Edge as a browser. So I think there's a lot more to it than just Bing.com that are easy for people to overlook. And, I don't know about you, but my work computer defaults to Microsoft Edge.
Yeah.
So even if I'm typically a Google user at home or I haven't yet opened Google, Bing is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then something else we talked about kind of with, just making sure our messaging is clear across the board. A big part of that is being able to adjust our site, adjust our messaging. Give me your thoughts on website platforms and if there's any correlation there with success.
In the e-commerce world, getting a new website is like opening a new store, right? A physical storefront or something. It's a huge project, and obviously you want to put your best foot forward. And I'd say another advantage of being an agency is I work with all different kinds of clients with all different types of website platforms, and I have some that have worked consistently great for me, and then and offer a lot, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other website platforms that they just don't seem to offer a lot by default, as from what I see from others. So for what I see work really well, the big three: Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce. It seems that clients are always very happy with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy with the performance that we see from there. So that is what works well. Always gonna recommend to my clients what I see work well ultimately.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other platforms?
No, and I think I agree with those, and just adding in that the same can kind of be true for the CRM side of things as well, especially for those lead clients. Just because, yes, you can manually upload a list of emails for a new lookalike audience whenever you want, but It's a whole lot easier if you can just link your HubSpot and let it do it for you. So there are sometimes those seemingly small benefits from those bigger name website platforms, CRM platforms that might be worth the extra investment in the long run to kind of automate a lot of things for you and allow for that easy offline conversion tracking and just other small details that can really improve performance. If you enjoyed the content here today or found any of it useful, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, try these tactics, and let us know your results.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you again soon.